Here it is, the mobile nurse guide. I've been requested by a lot of people to make this nurse guide, and they asked me questions like how do you counter good players, how long do you hold your blink and stuff like that. So don't worry, I'll be covering everything which I think is important and necessary to become a decent nurse. I've searched around for like nurse guides for mobile and I haven't seen like a quite detailed one where the person actually talks, so I thought I could just do it. So I want to go through some sections which I think are quite important, like the importance of playing claw with nurse, fundamentals, muscle memory, how to travel the map, how to counter normal players, killer shack, how to counter high level survivors, adapting to different players, best perks and perk builds, and at the last the maps and the tier list. I'll have all the timestamps in the pinned comment for you to skip to the part you just want to look at, and the part you're already good at you can just skip that. And yeah, let's just get straight into the first section. Okay, so the first bit I want to get into is if you're able to play claw with nurse, I'd really advise you to play claw. So claw is basically playing 4 fingers, and the reason why it's so good, you can basically design 1 finger each for each button. So it basically does everything faster, your reaction times and how quick you turn after you blink. And when someone tries to 360, you can easily counter the 360. So for example, my left thumb is to move the joystick, my left index is to swing, and my right thumb is to counter the 360s and like move my screen fully. And then my right index is for the power. So if you guys want me to make like a separate video on that, on how to play claw, I'd be more than happy to make it. And my HUD looks something like this, and if you switch to claw you can see a big difference from 2 fingers to 4, and especially for nurse it makes like a really big impact. Okay, so next up I want to go over muscle memory. I think this is probably the most important part of learning nurse, needing to know where to land, how to hold your blink, etc. For building muscle memory, you can use an add-on called Played Flannel. It basically tells you where you can blink, and to use this, it should build your muscle memory, but after that I think you should remove it, as your muscle memory should build up, and it's not good to rely on an add-on the whole time. So that's just one thing I can recommend. You can't just learn muscle memory like that though, in like a day. It will be something you learn over time. You might need to go into pubs, just start practicing, chase people to build your muscle memory. It's something you need to keep in your mind and just like learn how long I should hold my build. And then I know everyone says this, but there's really no kill your friends on mobile, so you can just practice in pubs. Doesn't matter what rank you are literally versing, you can build muscle memory over like rank 1s, rank 20s. Basically what I'm trying to say is that you can just keep playing until you know where to blink. There's not really a quick way you can learn it. I mean, you can set targets in pubs, like I want to land on this side of this part, and I want to land on like this survivor right on his back. And I think this is what you need to like really master to become a decent like understanding nurse. So now briefly I just want to talk about how to travel the map with her. So if you usually play with the double add-ons, the double recharge add-ons, you can just burn both blinks quickly as they recharge like quite quick. But with no add-ons, I usually use no add-ons. I suggest you just like when you're patrolling gens, you just use 1 blink and then fatigue and then carry on to the other gen. So when you're trying to find a survivor, maybe from whispers, or you just find one, you have a blink ready to blink on him and hit him, or to just get line of sight on him and to see where he's going, to just like grab some information. So the simple rule with nurse is your first blink is always to set up your second blink. So I think this is really important, and if you burn 2 blinks at the start and there's a survivor like near you, you're gonna have to wait for your blinks to recharge. And I think you only burn 2 blinks when you can literally hit him, and yeah, that's the only exception. Okay, so with fatigue, most PC pros like usually use Shadowborn. It increases your FOV, but you know, with mobile, Shadowborn is basically glitched, so it should be showing you that it's glitched. So when you blink, it basically turns your view upside down. So I don't suggest using it at all. It's quite rubbish. So till it's fixed, you'll just have to try and guess and see where the survivor is going from what you're able to hear. So like the footsteps, you can hear like the grass moving. And I think if you really want to see where they're going, you should just try to wear a headset and see where you can listen to their groans of pain. So you should know which direction to blink at. I want to go over the fundamentals for the nurse. She's a heavily reliable power killer. She relies on her blinks due to the fact she's the slowest killer by far. So please just don't walk with her, as she's literally useless when she walks. With blinks, your first blink is always to set up your second blink. I've said this before. You're basically trying to get line of sight with your first blink and hit with the second. So I've got this Super Elf's guide to show what you're meant to do with players who had their line of sight. So you can have like a jungle gym, for example. And when you have two blinks, I suggest with your first one, you go to the corner, as some people double back as they think you will blink directly on them. And if they don't double back, you can have a blink left, which you can get a hit or fatigue and reset. If you only have one blink left, so when you're about to enter like the jungle gym, like the corner, if you only have one blink, I'd say just don't waste your blink and blink to the green line directly so you can get some line of sight. And sometimes the player might not even double back. So if he doesn't, you can literally catch him with that one blink. And if he does, you can just fatigue and reset again. So only direct blink if you have one blink. But with two, go to the corner where they were last seen, then blink again to get a hit, as they wouldn't have gone too far. So if you have two blinks, don't try and blink on top of a survivor with only one blink, as they might double back, and which might cost you, as they might gain a lot of distance. But if you know for sure that you will get a hit with your first blink as they're near, just go for it. And just another thing I want to point out, making sure that you get the hit if you blink right on top of the survivor. Just make sure you wait a second or two before, as sometimes the hit goes through them and they might just like move a bit back. So just wait a second or two before, as you have time to swing before the nurse gets fatigued. So take your time with the hit. Okay, so with normal like average players, they will sometimes double back, and they will usually use windows for like jungle gyms, just like they loop any other killer. So this is also from Super Elf's guide, and it tells you all the routings which survivors will take. So if you just want to pause the vid and take in all the info, it's up to you. You see all the ways they loop different tiles, and if you just get around the way they loop them, you can get easy downs. So with these players, like the average players, there won't be a lot of mind games you will need to use against them. So you should get hits. Even if you don't get hit with these two blinks, just make sure your blinks aren't wasted. So you make sure you get information about where they are going, and as you will blink past them, you will usually see where they run. Some of them, they usually run in like a straight line, so you are able to see the patterns and you are able to get hits, but occasionally they double back. If the survivor double backs early, just allow yourself to fatigue and blink again if needed. You don't even need to blink most of the time. You can just fatigue, and you can just down them just by walking. And that's because they come too close and they have like little distance between the killer, so it's like an easy down. Okay, so next on to the killer shack. People have asked me how to counter killer shack as nurse, as some people struggle with the shack, and I don't see the difficulty with the shack. So my advice is that you should try blink from the inside of the shack, where you can see through the little cracks and from the window. So you can see where they're about to move. When you blink, you know for sure that the survivor is in that position, as you can see through the little cracks. You can see all their movement. Okay, so now with the high level survivors, I think everyone just wants to know how to get someone down in 10 seconds with the nurse. And I think most people would just skip to this part. So most high level players, they like to hide their line of sight a lot. which makes it difficult for the nurse players, as they have to guess a lot of their blinks. So to counter that, you would have to either walk them out of that area so you get a clear line of sight on them, or if you're really confident with your ability, so you should try to make like a prediction blink. I have an example of a prediction blink here. So yeah, most of them, they will sometimes double back, or they would like switch up their movement, which would make it really weird for the killer. I've done adapting to these survivors later on, so just keep watching for that. So the best advice I can give to chase like high level of players is that you should just walk them out of an area where you have no line of sight, and try to get hits from an area where there is a lot of line of sight. So basically you should try to chase them at areas like shack or weaker tiles without a lot of objects, where they have like a less of an opportunity to outplay you. So you should just be chasing them where you know you'll be guaranteed a hit, or you'll be guaranteed a down. So you should avoid chasing around like Haddonfield houses, as most blinks will be predictions, and good survivals will have like weird movement which will catch you off guard. And I think it's just to avoid getting like mad or triggered that none of your blinks are landing. Another good advice I can give you is that you can see when a survivor is about to double back. If you look closely at the back of their head, it will be turning around, so it's likely that they will double back as soon as you like start a blink. So I would suggest that you do a short blink, as they would double back early. So you would just do a short blink right behind them, just a bit behind them. And if they fake the double back and keep running, you still have your second blink to catch up with them. And if they're close enough, you can hit them with it. And another advice I can give is, if you notice like you're whiffing a lot, or a good survivor is going into like a strong building where you can hide a lot of line of sight, I think you should just leave him and go for someone else. And when that survivor isn't around like a good loop, you can catch him there. Okay, so another thing I've learned whilst playing against higher level players was sometimes they try to play with the pallet. So like this, they throw it down early, and as soon as you blink, they vote back. This is quite easy to counter. Even if you have like one blink, you can get them. It's quite obvious that they are going to vote back, so if you just spam your blink button twice, or you look down whilst blinking, you should blink like right back to where you blink from, and it should be an easy grab or just an easy down from there. But the grab there was glitched, so I just downed it. Okay, for this section I haven't seen like a lot of people talking about it, so I just wanted to talk about why it's so important to try and adapt to different players throughout the game and how they play. So if you see like a player who isn't doubling back at all, don't double back at walls, etc., at like jungle gyms, and just don't double back. Go for more prediction blinks and trying to get more line of sight on them. As for some survivors, to just keep running and holding W. So if I see a survivor who got down by me because he doubled back twice, it's likely that he won't double back anymore. So I just keep that in the back of my head, that he will change his movement throughout the match if he's smart. So if he's getting downed quite easily because he's doing the same thing, he might change it up. So you have to be ready that he will be changing his movement up. So on mobile, you usually get like the same people sometimes, so they change how they play against you. Sometimes they will try to hide their line of sight more. So I think it's just important to know when to double back at some positions, and just to predict some blinks at some positions. Okay, so with the last section, I want to talk about the perks that are good for nurse. So if you really want to become good at chases and you don't care about winning or like getting 4Ks, I suggest you use barbecue to find people easily, infectious just to like slug and practice your chasing, sloppy to slow down the game a bit, and same with pop. I think that infectious is the best perk by far, so I suggest you use it with like any build that you choose. That's because she's the best slugger and she can literally get anyone down in like a couple of seconds. But if you think you're like good with her, like but you can still improve, and you want like 4Ks, I'd say you can run Ruin, Pop, Tinkerer, and Infectious, or Corrupt or Barbecue instead of Ruin. I just use Ruin, that's because I like more gen pressure, so I use Ruin. You can also use like Whispers if you want, to find like more people, but you shouldn't really rely on the gen pressure to slow the game down. You should be slugging a bit and you should be slowing it down from your own skill of downing people. And if you're already like a really good nurse, I suggest playing with no gen defense and just slugging to increase your chases, as you're already good at other aspects like tracking, which you need like barbecue for. So for that, I suggest you can use like Deer Stalker, Infectious, Third Seal, and Nurses. That's just like a pure slugging build. And if you need like a build surrounding like perks that counter exhaustion perks, so you can use these perks, which you unlock from the demo and from Oni. And yeah, I've already covered Shadowborn as its glitch, so you don't need to use that. That's because it just goes under, and when it's fixed on mobile you can probably use it to get better, but I think you should stop using it after, as there's like more perks that are worth a perk slot more than Shadowborn. So my maps tier list looks something like that, and the reason for that is as there's less maps on mobile, so I can just only do mobile ones. But the reason I have Azeroth and Macmillan up there, right at the top, is because players can't hide their line of sight as much on these maps, and it's quite open, and it's quite easy to get like easy hits. Um, I think the Clown's Asylum is quite underrated. I don't get why so many people hate it, but the Nurse's Asylum, I'd put that in probably bad for Nurse. The worst map is probably Leary's and Haddonfield, as there's so many walls and houses you can barely see any players. Yeah, I just hate playing on Haddonfield and Leary as Nurse, because it's just you barely get any line of sight, and it's just you trying to predict where to blink to and where the survivors will be. And the reason why I don't have Midwich as the worst is because there's like long empty hallways which I can get line of sight from. But even if I was versing like a survive with friends, I think it'd still be quite hard. So it's close to being up there, but the hallways make it not that bad. And that's my guide done. I think people struggle with Nurse on mobile, so I hope this helps you out. And thanks for watching, guys, especially if you made it like till the end. I spent a lot of time making this guide, so if you could just consider subbing and liking and possibly sharing this guide, I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.